November 23rd, 1943, 11:42 a.m. over Schweinfurt, Germany. The B-17F shudders as cannon fire tears through thin aluminum. Engine 3 trails black smoke across formation altitude. Inside Thunderhead, radio static breaks. Nose compartment hit, bombardier wounded. Crew Chief Joe Galloway isn't at his station. He's forward, kneeling on riveted steel, hands steady, despite 30mm shells punching through the fuselage. A jagged hole gapes where plexiglass once was, 6 inches across, wind screaming through at 200 knots. He pulls the reinforced canvas patch from his pack, fingers tracing stitched edges. The modification looks crude, improvised, ugly, but it's calculated. Double-layer duck canvas over formed steel plate, designed to deflect shrapnel and maintain pressure differential. The crew watches him work, oxygen masks fogging, their survival tied to this makeshift engineering. Below, flak bursts bloom, black against winter clouds. Galloway threads steel wire through pre-punched grommets. The patch holds. Thunderhead stays airborne. Post-mission reports would note the innovation. But in this moment, at 23,000 feet over hostile territory, it's simply the difference between completing the bomb run and becoming another lost statistic in the 8th Air Force ledger. By October 1943, the 8th Air Force faced a grim arithmetic problem. Deep penetration raids into Germany cost an average of 5.7% losses per mission, unsustainable when crews needed to complete 25 missions for rotation. At RAF Kimbolton, Cambridgeshire, briefing rooms smelled of coffee, cigarette smoke, and mimeograph fluid. Maps covered walls, red lines arcing toward industrial targets deep in the Reich. Technical Sergeant Joe Galloway sat in the back row, notebook open. At 31, he was older than most crew chiefs, a Detroit toolmaker before the war, assigned to the 379th Bombardment Group. His responsibility, keeping B-17F serial number 42-30336, nicknamed Thunderhead, mission capable. That meant pre-flight inspections at 0400 hours, post-mission damage assessment, coordinating repairs with ground crews working 18-hour shifts. The intelligence officer pointed to Schweinfurt on the wall map, ball-bearing factories, expected enemy fighter response, 200-plus interceptors, flak intensity, severe. The previous raid on Schweinfurt in August had cost 60 bombers, the worst single-day loss in 8th Air Force history. Galloway watched the navigators calculate fuel loads, bomb tonnage, formation positions. He thought about Thunderhead's oxygen system, recently patched after the Emden raid, and the hydraulic leak in the ball turret assembly. Small failures that could cascade into catastrophe at 25,000 feet. Around him, mechanics whispered about field modifications. Someone mentioned reinforced nose sections. The vulnerability was documented. Luftwaffe pilots had learned to attack head-on, knowing the B-17s' forward armament was lightest. Plexiglass nose cones shattered under cannon fire. Bombardiers and navigators died in their stations. Galloway made notes. If the Germans were targeting the nose, engineering solutions existed. The question was implementation. What could be fabricated in a field environment with available materials and time constraints measured in hours between missions? The briefing ended at 0600. Outside, dawn light touched the hardstands, where 54 B-17s waited. Galloway walked toward Thunderhead, frost crunching under his boots, already calculating what needed to be done. At 0430 hours, work lights illuminated the hardstand. Thunderhead sat with landing gear compressed, props motionless, aluminum skin scarred from flak. Galloway conducted his walk-around inspection with a flashlight and clipboard. Engine nacelles, control surfaces, landing gear struts, each component checked against maintenance specifications. The nose cone drew his attention. Plexiglass panels showed stress fractures from the previous mission. He climbed the forward crew ladder and entered the bombardier's compartment. The Norden bomb sight sat under its canvas cover. Ahead, the glazed nose offered visibility for precision bombing and vulnerability for precise killing. Galloway had read the damage reports. Lieutenant Morrison's B-17 over Hamburg, 20mm cannon, round through the nose, bombardier killed instantly, navigator wounded. Captain Fletcher's aircraft over Bremen, frontal attack, nose section destroyed, aircraft lost control, 7 crew killed. The pattern repeated across mission reports. He descended the ladder and found Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, assistant crew chief, waiting with coffee. Chen had worked Boeing assembly lines before the war. Together they studied the nose section. "Reinforcement options?" Galloway asked. Chen pulled out sketches. Steel plate, 1/4 inch, mounted internally, behind the plexiglass. Absorbs impact energy, deflects fragments. Weight, 47 pounds, acceptable within load specifications. Fabrication time, 18 hours with machine shop access. We'd need to remove the Norden, drill mounting points, secure with aircraft-grade bolts. Galloway considered the timeline. Next mission scheduled for November 23rd. 4 days. The modification was feasible, but steel alone wasn't sufficient. Shrapnel could still penetrate gaps, and a major hit would shatter reinforcements. He thought about layered protection, industrial fabric, the heavy duck canvas used for engine covers could provide a secondary barrier. Multiple layers would catch fragments, distribute impact force. The combination seemed sound, rigid backing with flexible outer protection. "Start fabrication," Galloway said. "I'll clear it with the CO." By 0800 hours, the request reached Major William Randolph, 379th Bomb Group Engineering Officer. Randolph reviewed the proposal. Minimal weight increase, no impact on bombing accuracy, materials. Available from base supplies. Approved. The modification became informal policy. All available B-17s would receive nose reinforcement before the Schweinfurt mission. November 21st, 1943. The machine shop at Kimbolton operated around the clock. Galloway and Chen worked alongside civilian contractors and Royal Air Force technicians. Steel plates arrived from depot supplies. Mild steel, 1/4 inch thickness, cut to template specifications that matched the B-17F nose curvature. The fabrication process required precision. Each plate needed mounting holes, drilled at exact locations to align with airframe structure. Galloway used the bombardier's station as reference, marking positions where steel wouldn't obstruct the Norden bomb sight or interfere with oxygen lines and electrical conduits. Chen operated the drill press, cutting through steel with carbide bits. The work generated heat and metal shavings that glittered under work lights. Each hole was deburred, checked with calipers, marked with assembly numbers. The canvas layer posed different challenges. Standard engine covers used 8-ounce duck canvas, but Galloway specified 12-ounce material, denser weave, greater tear resistance. The base supply sergeant located 4 rolls intended for tent repair. Close enough. Cutting canvas required measurements transferred from steel templates. Chen marked patterns with chalk, cut with shears, leaving 2-inch overlap for stitching. The base parachute rigger, Corporal Sarah Brennan, provided industrial sewing equipment. She'd worked in a Philadelphia textile mill before enlisting in the Women's Army Corps. "You want this reinforced at stress points?" Brennan asked, examining the patterns. "Double stitch all edges," Galloway said. "Add grommets every 6 inches for wire mounting." Brennan nodded. "I'll use nylon thread. Stronger than cotton, won't rot in moisture." The assembly came together over 2 days. Steel plates bolted to airframe structure. Canvas stretched over steel, secured with stainless wire threaded through grommets and anchored to existing mounting points. The result looked crude. Canvas bulged slightly, stitching visible, wire connections exposed. Someone called it the ugly nose patch. The name stuck. By November 22nd, 14 B-17s had been modified. Thunderhead was among them. Galloway inspected the installation at 2200 hours, tugging canvas, checking bolt torque, verifying clearances. The modification added 49 pounds to the nose, within acceptable limits. Outside, ground crews fueled bombers for the morning mission. Weather reports showed clearing skies over Germany. Optimal bombing conditions. The Luftwaffe would be waiting. November 23rd, 03:45 hours. Engines coughed to life across Kimbolton's hard stands, radials firing in sequence, exhaust flames blew in pre-dawn darkness. Galloway completed pre-flight inspection by flashlight, signing off on Thunderhead's maintenance log. Oil pressure, nominal. Hydraulics, functioning. Nose patch, secure. The crew assembled at 04:30. Pilot Captain James Harmon, 26 from Nebraska, 15 missions completed. Co-pilot Lieutenant David Chen, 23, Michael Chen's younger brother. Navigator, bombardier, radio operator, engineer, gunners, 10 men total, average age 24. Takeoff commenced at 0615. 54 B-17s lifted from Kimbolton in sequence, circling to formation altitude. By 0740, the 379th Bomb Group joined the larger stream, 330 bombers from multiple groups converging on assembly points over the English coast. Galloway rode in the radio compartment, monitoring systems. This wasn't standard procedure. Crew chiefs typically remained on the ground, but Harmon had requested his presence for the first mission with the modified nose. If problems developed, Galloway could assess damage mid-flight, recommend emergency procedures. The formation crossed the channel at 0820. Below, whitecaps marked the water. Ahead, the French coast appeared through broken clouds. Altitude, 23,000 feet. Temperature, -35 degrees Celsius. Oxygen flow, steady. At 10:15 hours, P-47 escort fighters departed, reaching their fuel limit. The bombers continued alone, penetrating German airspace without cover. Galloway watched contrails stream from engine nacelles, white lines against blue sky. Beautiful and tactically dangerous. Enemy fighters could track formations from 50 miles. The first interceptors appeared at 10:47. Focke-Wulf 190s, diving from altitude, attacking from the sun. Galloway heard the 50 caliber guns open fire, felt the airframe shudder from recoil. Shell casings tumbled past windows. Tracers arced outward. A FW-190 came straight at Thunderhead's nose, cannon winking. Galloway braced. Impacts hammered the forward section. Metallic crashes, then the high-pitched scream of wind through torn metal. The bombardier's intercom crackled. Nose hit. Patch held. No penetration. The fighter flashed past, rolling away. Galloway moved forward to assess damage. 4 cannon strikes had hit the canvas patch. The fabric showed torn sections, but steel backing had stopped fragments. No crew casualties. The Norden bomb site remained intact. Schweinfurt lay ahead. The mission continued. At 11:18 hours, Thunderhead's formation approached the initial point for the bomb run. Below, Schweinfurt spread across the main river valley. Industrial districts, rail yards, and the clustered factory buildings that produced 50% of Germany's ball bearings. Flak batteries opened fire. Galloway watched black bursts bloom at formation altitude, each explosion representing 88mm shells detonating in preset patterns. Shrapnel peppered aluminum skin with sounds like hail on sheet metal. The bomber held steady. Evasive action wasn't possible during the bomb run. Bombardiers needed stable platforms for accuracy. The Norden bombsight calculated wind drift, airspeed, altitude. At 11:21, bombs released. 12 500-pound high-explosive weapons falling toward factory complexes. Thunderhead lurched upward, suddenly lighter by 6,000 pounds. "Bombs away," the bombardier reported. "Let's get the hell out of here." The formation turned northwest, beginning the long flight back to England. But the Luftwaffe wasn't finished. Me-109s attacked from above, FW-190s from the sides. Galloway counted 16 fighters engaging their formation simultaneously, a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm defensive fire. Thunderhead's waist gunners fired continuously. Spent brass accumulated on the floor, ankle deep. The ball turret gunner rotated beneath the fuselage, tracking targets. Tracers crossed in complex patterns, German and American rounds intermixed. Another frontal attack. This time, 2 fighters came together, alternating fire to suppress the nose guns, cannon rounds stitched across Thunderhead's forward section. The bombardier called out hits. Galloway felt impacts through the airframe, solid thumps as steel absorbed energy, sharper pings as fragments ricocheted. The canvas patch took additional damage. One entire section tore away, flapping in the slipstream. But the steel backing held position, and the critical equipment remained protected. One round had struck within inches of the Norden bombsight. The canvas layer deflected it downward into structural framing. At 11:47, the fighters withdrew. Fuel limitations forced them to break contact. The formation continued northwest, gradually losing altitude as fuel consumption lightened the aircraft. Engine 3 on Thunderhead ran rough, possible cylinder damage from flak fragments. Harmon adjusted power settings, maintaining formation position. By 12:30, P-47 escorts rejoined the bomber stream over Belgium. The worst was over. Galloway inventoried damage, nose patch heavily damaged but functional, multiple flak holes in wings and fuselage, hydraulic system leaking, engine 3 operating at reduced power. They would make it home. The patch had worked. Thunderhead touched down at Kimbolton at 14:28 hours. The landing gear protested, hydraulic pressure low, but held. Harmon taxied to the hardstand and shut down engines. In the sudden silence, crew members removed oxygen masks, spoke in quiet voices. Galloway descended first, conducting immediate post-flight inspection. Flak damage was extensive, 63 holes catalogued in the preliminary count. The nose patch showed 4 cannon strikes and multiple shrapnel impacts. Canvas hung in shreds, wire mountings twisted, but steel plate remained secured to the airframe. Captain Harmon joined him at the nose. "Your patch saved Morrison's life," he said. The bombardier had been inches from a direct hit. And it probably saved the aircraft. Other B-17s returned with varying damage. Of the 54 that departed Kimbolton, 49 returned. 3 were lost to fighters, 2 to flak. The 379th losses were lighter than other groups. Post-mission analysis would note the correlation with nose reinforcements. By 1600 hours, Galloway met with Major Randolph and the group's intelligence officers. They reviewed combat footage, gun camera film showing frontal attacks, damage assessments, crew reports. The nose patch concept had proven effective, but the implementation needed refinement. "Canvas tears too easily," Galloway said. "We need stronger outer layer." "Kevlar?" someone suggested. "Doesn't exist yet," Chen corrected, "but rubberized fabric might work, treated canvas with synthetic rubber coating. More tear-resistant, weatherproof." "Weight increase?" Randolph asked. "Minimal, maybe 5 additional pounds. Can you fabricate it?" "If we can source the material." Randolph made notes. I'll contact 8th Air Force Supply. Meanwhile, repair the damaged patches. Next mission is November 26th, 3 days. The work began immediately. Damaged canvas was removed, steel plates inspected for deformation. Brennan's parachute team fabricated replacement canvas sections, this time with reinforced stitching patterns based on observed failure points. By November 25th, Thunderhead was mission-ready again. The ugly nose patch looked worse than before, mismatched canvas colors, visible repair stitching, wire lashings at odd angles, but function mattered more than appearance. That evening, Galloway wrote to his wife in Detroit. He didn't mention combat or casualties. Censorship prohibited such details. He wrote about solving problems, about teamwork, about making things work under pressure. The skills he'd learned in tool and die shops translated directly to keeping aircraft flying. The work mattered. The crew depended on it. Outside, mechanics worked under floodlights, preparing bombers for the next mission. November 26, 1943. The target was Bremen, a port city on the Weser River. German submarine facilities, shipyards, and industrial works. Expected resistance heavy. Thunderhead lifted off at 0625, joining a formation of 294 bombers. Weather over the North Sea was deteriorating, clouds building from the surface to 12,000 feet. The formation climbed through turbulence, emerging into clear sky at 18,000 feet. Galloway rode the mission again, monitoring the nose patch and other systems. The repaired canvas showed no signs of immediate failure, but he worried about accumulated stress. Each mission added damage. Repairs bought time, but metal fatigue and material degradation were cumulative. At 10:35, P-47 escorts departed at their range limit. Minutes later, Luftwaffe fighters appeared. Me-109s and FW-190s attacking in staffel-strength formations. The assault was coordinated and aggressive, with fighters making multiple passes before breaking away. Thunderhead's formation tightened for mutual defensive fire. Galloway watched tracers arc outward, creating overlapping fire zones. The tactics were evolving, both sides adapting to the other's methods. German pilots now attacked in pairs, one fighter suppressing defensive guns while the other delivered cannon fire. A FW-190 came head-on, its wing-mounted cannons firing. Galloway saw muzzle flashes, then felt impacts as rounds struck the nose section. The steel plate rang like a bell, canvas tore along one edge, plexiglass cracked but didn't shatter. The bombardier returned fire with the cheek guns, tracer rounds converging on the attacking fighter. The FW-190 broke left, trailing smoke. Whether it was damaged or simply evading, Galloway couldn't tell. Aerial combat happened too fast for detailed observation, just impressions of motion, sound, violence compressed into seconds. More attacks followed. By the time the formation reached Bremen, Thunderhead had been hit 7 times. The nose patch absorbed most of the damage, but accumulating stress was visible. Steel plate showed deformation, not penetration, but permanent buckling. Canvas strips hung loose, flapping in slipstream. The bomb run proceeded through intense flak. At 11:47, weapons released. The formation turned west, beginning the return flight. Fighters harassed them to the coast, then withdrew. Thunderhead landed at Kimballton at 14:32 hours with 78 flak holes and multiple battle damage areas. The nose patch had failed partially. Steel mounting points had pulled through airframe structure on one side. Emergency repairs were required. Galloway supervised the work himself, knowing the next mission was already being planned. By December 1943, the ugly nose patch had become informal standard equipment across multiple bomb groups. Word spread through maintenance channels. Crew chiefs shared specifications, fabrication techniques, installation methods. The modification was simple enough to implement with available materials and base-level tools. 8th Air Force Headquarters took notice. After-action reports documented reduced casualties in aircraft with nose reinforcements. Statistical analysis showed correlation between protective modifications and crew survival rates in frontal attacks. On December 8th, a formal technical order was issued. All B-17F and B-17G aircraft were to receive nose armor protection, specifications to be determined by field engineering officers, but formal approval came with formal requirements. Engineering teams arrived at Kimbolton to assess the field modifications. They measured, photographed, tested. Galloway spent 2 days explaining design, rationale, material choices, installation procedures. The result was a standardized specification: formed steel armor plate, specific thickness and coverage area, mounting hardware to aircraft specifications, optional canvas outer layer. Weight limit 55 pounds. The standardized version would be fabricated at depot level and installed during scheduled maintenance. Takes 6 weeks to reach the fleet, Major Randolph explained. Meanwhile, keep doing what you're doing. Galloway continued field installations. By December 15th, all operational B-17s at Kimbolton had nose protection. Other groups requested technical assistance. Galloway travelled to RAF Molesworth, RAF Bassingbourne, RAF Grafton Underwood, training other crew chiefs on fabrication and installation. The work was satisfying in ways difficult to articulate. Each installation represented crew members who might survive attacks that would have killed them. The modification wasn't elegant, still looked improvised, still earned the ugly designation, but elegance wasn't the objective, function was. On December 20th, Thunderhead flew its 25th mission, a raid on Ludwigshafen. Captain Harmon and his crew completed their tour, rotating back to the United States. A new crew took over the aircraft. The nose patch remained, now scarred with over 30 combat damage marks, repaired, reinforced, rebuilt multiple times. Galloway inspected it after the mission. The original steel plate was deformed but intact. Canvas had been replaced 4 times. Wire lashings showed stress fatigue, but the assembly still functioned, still protected the bombardier and navigator, still absorbed energy from cannon rounds and flak fragments. In January 1944, the first depot-manufactured nose armor kits arrived. Galloway installed one on a fresh B-17G just assigned to the 379th. The factory version was cleaner, more precise, lighter, but it served the same purpose. The ugly nose patch had evolved into official equipment. December 22, 1943. Intelligence reports indicated increased Luftwaffe fighter strength. German aircraft production had actually increased despite sustained bombing campaigns. Dispersed manufacturing, underground facilities, and ruthless prioritization kept fighters operational. The air war over Germany was intensifying. Galloway watched new bombers arrive at Kimbolton, B-17Gs with improved defensive armament, including chin turrets specifically designed to counter frontal attacks. The factory-installed modifications addressed the same vulnerability that the nose patch targeted, but operational aircraft needed field solutions until new models filtered through the fleet. On Christmas Day, there were no missions, weather-scrubbed operations across Europe. Galloway spent the day in the machine shop, fabricating replacement parts, organizing supplies. The work never stopped. When bombers weren't flying, they needed maintenance. When maintenance wasn't urgent, improvements could be made. Staff Sergeant Chen found him at 1600 hours. "You should take a break. It's Christmas." These mounting brackets won't fabricate themselves. They also won't fabricate faster because you're tired." Galloway set down his tools. Chen was right. Fatigue led to mistakes, and mistakes in aircraft maintenance led to casualties. They walked to the mess hall, where cooks had prepared special meals, roasted turkey, sent from the States, approximating holiday traditions. The mess hall was crowded, with crew members, ground personnel, support staff. Someone played piano badly. Others sang. The atmosphere was determined cheerfulness. Men far from home, trying to create normalcy in abnormal circumstances. Corporal Brennan sat with her parachute team, playing cards. She waved Galloway over. "Heard you're training crew chiefs at other bases." "Teaching what we learned here. The patch is famous now. I heard they're calling it Galloway's modification in some groups." "It's not mine. It's everyone's. Chen's calculations, your stitching, Randolph's approval, the crew chiefs who installed them. Still, you started it." Galloway thought about the first installation on Thunderhead, working by flashlight, unsure if the concept would function. That was 7 weeks ago. Now, hundreds of B-17s carried similar protection. Casualties had decreased measurably. The modification had contributed to that, one factor among many, but a real contribution. Outside, snow fell across the airfield. Bombers sat silent on hardstands, waiting for the next mission. The war continued. It would continue for another 1.5 years. More raids, more losses, more desperate improvisations to keep aircraft flying and crews alive. But tonight, for a few hours, there was turkey and terrible piano music and the small comfort of being alive. January 1944 brought intensified operations. The combined bomber offensive escalated. Larger formations, deeper penetrations, increased frequency. The 8th Air Force aimed to establish air superiority before the planned invasion of France. That required destroying the Luftwaffe, either in the air or on the ground. Thunderhead flew with a new crew now. Captain Robert Martinez, pilot from Texas, transferred from the 15th Air Force in Italy. His navigator, Lieutenant David Kowalski, had survived the Regensburg-Schweinfurt raid in August. The crew was experienced, careful, and realistic about their chances. Galloway continued his crew chief responsibilities, now supervising installations across multiple aircraft. His original, ugly nose patch design had evolved, better materials, refined mounting systems, standardized specifications, but the field versions still preceded factory kits by weeks or months. On January 11, the target was Oschersleben, aircraft production facilities. The mission involved 700 bombers, the largest force yet committed to a single operation. The Luftwaffe responded with everything available. Over 500 fighters committed to intercepting the bomber stream. The battle lasted 3 hours. Thunderhead's formation faced continuous attacks. Galloway, riding as observer, counted 18 separate engagements. Fighters attacking, breaking away, circling for additional passes. The 50 caliber guns ran hot, barrels glowing, ammunition cans emptied faster than anticipated. A Bf-109 made a head-on pass, firing all weapons. The nose patch took direct hits, 3 20mm cannon rounds, and multiple machine gun strikes. Steel plate deformed significantly, 2 mounting bolts sheared under impact stress. Canvas disintegrated, but the armor held position long enough to deflect the attack. The bombardier was hit by fragments, minor wounds to his left arm. He remained conscious and functional. Martinez kept the aircraft steady through the bomb run, weapons released at 13:34 hours. The formation turned west. Fighters continued harassing attacks until P-51 escorts arrived, the new long-range fighter that could accompany bombers to Berlin and back. Thunderhead landed at 16:12 hours with extensive damage. One engine was out, hydraulics failed. landing gear deployed manually. Galloway counted 96 flak holes and 14 cannon strike locations. The nose patch had absorbed 7 direct hits. Martinez found Galloway during the post-mission inspection. "Your patch saved Kowalski. He was 3 inches from where that round hit." Galloway nodded. 3 inches. The margin between life and death reduced to geometric space. That was the reality of aerial combat. Violence so precise and random simultaneously that survival became statistical rather than assured. February 1944. The campaign known as Big Week commenced. 6 days of maximum effort raids against German aircraft production facilities, weathered forced delays and modifications, but when operations commenced on February 20th, the 8th Air Force dispatched over 1,000 bombers daily. Galloway worked 18-hour shifts, supervising maintenance on the entire 329th Bomb Group fleet. Aircraft returned damaged, required rapid repair, launched again the next day. The pace was unsustainable but necessary. Air superiority depended on maintaining pressure, accepting losses, grinding down the Luftwaffe through attrition. The ugly nose patch proved its value repeatedly. Damage assessment reports showed reduced casualties in forward crew positions, but the modification wasn't perfect. High-velocity cannon rounds still penetrated occasionally. Accumulated stress caused mounting failures. Some installations required complete replacement after a single mission. On February 22nd, Thunderhead flew its 43rd mission since modification, a raid on Gotha, targeting Me-110 production facilities. The nose patch had been rebuilt twice, steel plate replaced once, canvas replaced 7 times. The current installation showed wear, deformed steel, loose mounting points, canvas beginning to fray. The mission encountered severe resistance. Luftwaffe fighters engaged before P-51 escorts arrived, attacking in formation strength. Thunderhead took multiple hits. 1 cannon round struck the junction between steel plate and airframe, the installation's weakest point. The mounting assembly failed. Steel plate tore away partially, leaving a gap. The bombardier, Lieutenant Kowalski, reported the failure. "Nose armor detached. I can see daylight through the gap." Martinez maintained formation position through the bomb run. Weapons released. The formation turned west. More attacks followed. A 7.92mm machine gun round entered through the armor gap, striking the Norden bomb site. The delicate optics shattered. The bombardier was uninjured, but the precision bombing instrument was destroyed. They returned to Kimbolton at 15:47 hours. Galloway examined the failed installation. Stress fractures had propagated through the airframe structure. The mounting points had pulled through aluminum skin. The installation method needed redesign, stronger mounting system, load distribution across wider area, reinforcement of airframe structure. That night, he drafted specifications for improved mounting hardware. Major Randolph forwarded them to 8th Air Force Engineering Headquarters. Within weeks, the recommendations became part of the formal technical order for nose armor installation. The modification continued evolving, adapting to observed failures, incorporating lessons learned from combat experience. The ugly nose patch was becoming refined engineering. March 1944. P-51 Mustang fighters now escorted bomber formations to any target in Germany. The Luftwaffe's defensive advantage eroded rapidly. Fighter losses mounted as American escort fighters engaged German interceptors before they reached bomber formations. The air war's character shifted. Losses decreased, not eliminated, but reduced from unsustainable to merely terrible. The 8th Air Force averaged 2 to 3% losses per mission, down from over 5% in late 1943. Galloway watched this transition through maintenance logs and damage reports. Aircraft returned with fewer fighter-inflicted wounds, more flak damage. The nose patch continued functioning, but its original purpose, protection against frontal attacks, became less critical as Luftwaffe fighter strength declined. On March 6th, the first major raid on Berlin took place. Over 600 bombers participated. Thunderhead flew as part of the formation, now carrying the improved nose armor system with reinforced mounting hardware. The mission encountered heavy flak but limited fighter opposition. They returned without significant damage. The nose patch showed minor flak fragment impacts, but no structural stress. Galloway's inspection found all mounting points secure, no canvas tears, steel plate intact. The modification had become reliable. Factory-manufactured armor kits now equipped most new aircraft. Field installations continued for older bombers, but standardization was nearly complete. The ugly nose patch was becoming obsolete, replaced by better engineered factory versions that served the same function without the improvised appearance. Galloway felt satisfaction and something else, a sense of work completing, of problems solved, of innovation adopted into standard practice. The modification had started as a desperate field expedient. Now it was official equipment, specified in technical orders, manufactured to engineering, standards installed on aircraft before they left the States. In April, Galloway received orders transferring him to the 15th Air Force in Italy. His expertise was needed there, helping implement the same nose armor modifications on B-24 Liberators, training crew chiefs, establishing maintenance protocols. Before departing Kimballton, he conducted a final inspection of Thunderhead. The bomber had flown 63 missions. The original nose patch installation was gone, replaced by factory armor. But the bombardier's station still showed marks, scratches on steel where cannon rounds had struck, small dents from fragments, the faded outline where canvas once covered metal, evidence of survival, evidence that improvisation could save lives. December 1945. The war had been over for 7 months. Joe Galloway sat in a small apartment in Detroit, back at his old job at the tool and die shop. The work was familiar. Precision machining, close tolerances, technical problem solving. But it felt different somehow, smaller in scope. A letter arrived from Michael Chen, still in the Army but assigned to engineering documentation duties at Wright Field in Ohio. Chen was compiling technical histories of field modifications during the war. He wanted Galloway's account of the nose armor development. Galloway wrote back, describing the process, the initial concept, fabrication challenges, installation procedures, combat testing, refinements. He included sketches from memory, the steel plate dimensions, canvas layering, mounting hardware evolution. He mentioned the crew members whose lives the modification had protected, the statistics showing reduced casualties, the formal technical orders that followed, but he also described the parts that wouldn't appear in official histories. The work at night under floodlights, hands numb from cold, knowing aircraft had to be mission ready by dawn. The faces of crew members returning from missions, oxygen masks leaving marks on skin, eyes showing strain. The quiet satisfaction of seeing bombers land safely that might have been lost without the modification. Chen responded weeks later. The nose armor modification would be documented in the Army Air Force's official technical history. Galloway's initial field installation on Thunderhead was cited as the developmental origin. The concept had eventually equipped over 12,000 heavy bombers, B-17s and B-24s in both European and Pacific theaters, estimated crew members protected from fatal wounds, classified but significant. Galloway filed the letter in a desk drawer. Outside, Detroit was rebuilding, automotive production resuming, factories converting from wartime to peacetime manufacturing, returning veterans finding work. The war's machinery was being dismantled, repurposed, or forgotten. But Thunderhead survived. Returned to the States after VE Day, the bomber was declared surplus and eventually scrapped. The aluminum went to smelters, recycled into peacetime products. The engines were salvaged for parts. The instruments were redistributed. The nose armour, factory manufactured and properly documented, was removed and sent to Wright Field for engineering analysis. It ended up in storage, catalogue number filed, significance noted in technical reports that few would read. The ugly nose patch had done its job. That was sufficient.